Hi there and welcome to today's vlog. Yes, we're back in good old Blighty. I arrived back a couple of days ago, a bit tired but not really any jet lag. It seemed like a long journey coming back, especially as we had to wait in London for a couple of hours waiting for our train connection back to Donny. I must say I'm not a fan of London. It always seems to be so busy, so crowded. But anyway, we're glad to be home, although having said that, part of me is really missing Florida and the people there who we come to love in that just a few weeks that we were there. So what a blessing that was, and will remain forever in our memories. Who knows if we'll ever go back? It'd be nice to do, but we don't know. One of the things that kind of surprised me really in some ways, although maybe it shouldn't, was that when we got back, I noticed that certainly around here, the grass verges, the lawns are brown and dry. There seems to be very little green. It must have obviously been a dry period while we've been away. That compares vividly with what was our experience in Florida, because although there's lots of sun there and it's very hot, it's also humid and it tends to rain quite a lot later in the day. So the grass grows amazingly quickly. It's verdant green compared with around here. And the strange thing is that although the grass is devastated and brown, some of the plants seem to have died with the lack of rain. The weeds, nevertheless, are growing. They seem to be flourishing still. It's strange how that happens, isn't it? But anyway, there we go. I want to tell you just something about our time in Florida. The church where I was preaching at, the First United Methodist Church in Lutz, in Florida, they have 3 morning services. The first is quite traditional, the second is a mixture of traditional and contemporary, and the third is contemporary. And so the minister and I, when I was stepping in, preached on each of the 3 services. Apart from the middle Sunday, which was the holiday weekend for the 4th of July celebration. So we only had 1 service on that Sunday. But on the final Sunday, our final Sunday that we were there, and that was such a blessing sad in some ways to have to say goodbye, but it was just so good to be with the folk of that church. What a great church it is, although I'm sure it's not perfect. I've never come across a perfect church. On the final Sunday, in the 3rd service, I was getting ready to preach the message that I'd given in the previous 2 services, and I really felt God saying, scrap your notes. I want you to just share your testimony, because the 3rd Sunday I was talking about the marks of a disciple of Jesus, and there are 4 things in the Gospels that Jesus specifically says would be a sign that someone is his disciple. And so that was what the theme of the service, and yet God, it seemed to me, was saying, don't worry so much about what you prepared, just share your own story, your own testimony of your life of discipleship. So that's what I did, and as part of that I told how naturally I'm quite a shy person. As a little boy, I was fearful of speaking to anybody I don't know. I would hide myself away at the back of the class if I could, and I was so very shy and introverted. And to some extent, that's still the case. Although God calls me to the ministry, so obviously I have to overcome that shyness, and with God's help, I've been able to fulfill His calling on my life to be a minister of the gospel. But I shared in that service my story and how God called this little lad to follow Him, to be a disciple of Jesus, and how eventually God called me into the ministry. And it's interesting that at the end of the service, I was talking to one person who was quite perceptive and say that little boy is still within. And I never really thought about it before, but it's true. That little boy that I was, that shy little introverted boy, is still within me to some extent. But God, in his wisdom, called me to this ministry, which involves standing up in front of people offering leadership, which that little boy would not naturally have chosen. And yet, as I shared with the congregation on that last Sunday, God doesn't look for great talents in us, he just looks for our availability. And if we say yes to God, he will use us. He will equip us to fulfill his purpose and his plan for our lives. He's got a purpose and a plan for every human life. And I thank God that in his wisdom, for some reason that I can't quite work out, he chose me, and he's chosen to use me. So that's an encouragement to all of us, that whoever we are, whatever our nature, our character, our strengths and weaknesses, God can use us for his plan and his purpose. So that's the thought for the day. God bless you. Thank you so much for listening to me.